Ever feel like you've marched through every foxhole Hollywood ever dug? Think again, cine soldiers, because these 15 forgotten 60s war epics are locked, loaded, and ready to blast your movie night into cinematic legend. Strap in, prime those comment triggers, and let's ride. The Train, 1964. What's more valuable in wartime, human lives or humanity's culture? That's the electrifying question powering John Frankenheimer's diesel-scented thriller, where Burt Lancaster's flinty French railman risks everything to keep a locomotive packed with priceless art from disappearing into the Reich. Frankenheimer, who seized the director's chair after Arthur Penn's slower approach derailed, insisted on shooting in authentic rail yards across eastern France. He even detonated full-size engines on live track, turning the budget's hefty $6+ million into screaming metal confetti. Lancaster, 49 and famously stubborn, refused stunt doubles, sprinting to stop moving wagons and pulling off a knee-buckling fall that left producers clutching insurance forms. Maurice Jarre's pounding percussion score fuses with the hiss of steam to etch every chase into your memory, while black and white cinematography paints soot-flecked clouds like war-torn frescoes. Though critics cheered its kinetic realism, the film's modest box office crawl, roughly $7 million, meant it was eclipsed by jumbo Technicolor spectacles of the era. All the better for us treasure hunters. Revisiting The Train today is like stumbling across a forgotten Monet in a dusty attic. 633 Squadron, 1964. Buckle those harnesses, flyboys, because this Royal Air Force barn burner serves up barrel rolls and bravery in equal measure. Cliff Robertson headlines as the stoic American leading an Anglo-Norwegian Mosquito squadron on a suicide run through a fjord so narrow the propellers practically shave pine needles. Director Walter Grauman rejected model miniatures, opting instead to fly 5 real decommissioned Mosquitoes, each lovingly refurbished, in screaming formation across Scotland's rugged Loch Morar. The low-altitude passes were so hair-raising that one pilot clipped a treetop, landing minutes from catastrophe and giving us authentic smoke, trailing the wing. The production's economical $1.3 million budget stretched to vivid deluxe color and daring plate process shots that George Lucas later dissected, frame by frame, while designing the rebel assault on the Death Star. Composer Ron Goodwin amps the tempo with brass fanfares that still echo at vintage airshow runways, while a pre-Thunderball Adolfo Celli growls command as the Gestapo villain. Critics praised the breathless aerial photography, yet its box office sortie barely cracked $2 million. Big Hollywood bombers overshadowed these twin-engine terriers. Today, the film's influence strafes everything from Top Gun to flight sim games, and that fjord run remains one of cinema's purest adrenal jolts. Loving the ride so far? Adjust your altitude, because the next target in sight. Castle Keep, 1969. Imagine a mashup of Hemingway, Fellini, and Warhol, all filtered through the snowy fog of the Battle of the Bulge. That's Castle Keep, Sidney Pollack's surrealist fever dream, where Burt Lancaster's one-eyed Major Falconer and his misfit platoon defend a medieval Belgian chateau stuffed with priceless art, wayward countesses, and existential dread. Pollack burned through $8 million in Yugoslavia, constructing full interior sets that could be blown apart with live mortar rounds. He hired novelist William Eastlake to rewrite scenes on set, encouraging actors to improvise philosophical riffs between firefights. Witness Bruce Dern waxing poetic about Volkswagens while shells burst overhead. Temperatures plunged to -10, cameras jammed, and Lancaster warmed his rifle by bonfire before taking it. Box office returns limped home under $2 million, and reviewers expecting a straight combat yarn recoiled at dope-smoked dialogues and pop songs drifting through the snow. Yet that very anachronism birthed the film's cult afterlife. Quentin Tarantino screens it privately to illustrate war as dream state, and modern art historians laud its debate on whether creative beauty can or should survive mechanized slaughter. The climax, a kaleidoscope of stained glass shrapnel and modern tank fire, feels like Rembrandt meeting napalm. Play Dirty, 1969. Sun-bleached cynicism never looked so savage. Michael Caine's Captain Douglas, an oil company stooge drafted into the long-range desert group, finds himself tacked onto a band of convict commandos, each one grinning at the possibility of profit over patriotism. Hungarian-born veteran André de Toth, famed for shooting in an eye patch and snarling at comfort, filmed in Spain's Tabernas Badlands after Israeli locations collapsed under insurance woes. Daily temperatures tore past 45 degrees Celsius. Actors smeared Vaseline on rifles to keep bolts sliding, and extras occasionally collapsed from heat stroke, captured in takes the director gleefully printed. Budget constraints meant recycling German half-tracks from Sergio Leone's The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly set next door. Crew members literally raked Sahara tracks smooth each dawn so yesterday's wheel prints wouldn't spoil continuity. The result is a brutal, dusty mission to sabotage a fuel dump that spirals into moral quicksand, capped by one of the bleakest gut-punch endings in war film history. Audiences of '69 weren't ready, and critics yelped, "Too cynical." Today, its flinty anti-heroism prefigures everything from Three Kings to Rogue One. Tobruk, 1967. Rock Hudson swaps matinee charm for grimy subterfuge in Universal's Sundazed North African Spectacular. Playing a British commando who masquerades as Africa Corps to infiltrate Rommel's fuel bunkers, Hudson partners with George Peppard's Jewish-German explosives expert, lightning bottled from their crackling distrust. Director Arthur Hiller shipped an arsenal of period vehicles to the blistering Almeria Desert, where 350 gallons of gasoline fueled pyrotechnics so fierce the Spanish army posted fire brigades on standby. Legendary cinematographer Russell Harlan lensed copper skies that ripple off Hudson's sweat-sheened helmet, while composer Bronislaw Kaper's staccato drums mimic Vickers' gun chatter. Scriptwriter and on-screen sergeant Leo Gordon mined his real World War II Marine experience, peppering dialogue with soldierly gallows humor. With $6 million sunk into production, the film's modest $2 million U.S. gross branded it a disappointment, but international markets and TV syndication kept it simmering until Tarantino name-checked it as Proto-Inglorious Bastards. Watch for Hiller's mirror-rigged Jeep shot, copied decades later in Spielberg's Raiders of the Lost Ark. The Devils Brigade, 1968. Long before Navy SEALs and Delta Force merch filled suburban closets, Frederick's 1st Special Service Force blended American brawn with Canadian mountain grit to seize Italian peaks deemed impossible. Andrew McLaglen's film salutes that legend with William Holden's burnout colonel forging Lee Marvin-style misfits into cliff-climbing phantoms. Shot in Utah's Wasatch Range and on Italy's Torbol Cliffs, stuntmen dangled from 300-foot sheer faces, while composer Alex North unleashed a brass anthem that climbs just as fiercely. Producers gambled $8 million and scored nearly as much in rentals, yet the film faded behind bigger-budget juggernauts. Its legacy, however, is carved into pop culture. Spielberg swiped the rope-slide assault concept for Saving Private Ryan, and modern Canadian Special Forces recruits still screen the movie during training weekends. Keep an ear out for Richard Jekyll's improvised profanity streak. Censors trimmed frames, but the raw audio leaks through like machine gun smoke. Saluting yet? Then hoist that maple leaf and stars and stripes, because this forgotten brotherhood still draws blood, sweat, and cheers in equal measure. The Bridge at Remagen, 1969. War's twilight breeds desperate gambles, and Robert L. Rosen's tense thriller chronicles one of Boba de Weyau's last, seizing the Ludendorff Bridge intact, giving Allied armor a direct artery to Germany's heart. George Siegel's war-weary lieutenant battles both Nazi resistance and his own Brass's timetable, while Robert Vaughn carves tragic nobility into a German major ordered to blow the span but hoping for peace. United Artists sought authenticity, filming in Czechoslovakia with actual Red Army vehicles repaint-jobbed as Wehrmacht hardware. Mid-shoot, the 1968 Warsaw Pact invasion rolled tanks past their hotel, cast and crew fled across the border, footage cans stashed in laundry baskets. Production costs ballooned beyond $5 million. Box office receipts limped in, but the raw footage captured before evacuation is pure battlefield verite. Dust-plumed half-tracks rattling across a Danube stand-in as civilians peek from broken windows. Elmer Bernstein's elegiac score pulses beneath explosions, foreshadowing Vietnam-era cynicism that critics praised but mainstream audiences dodged. Today, its moral fog, heroism blurred by exhaustion, feels eerily modern. King Rat, 1965. Prisoner of war tales usually preach stoic solidarity, but Brian Forbes's humid masterpiece flips the script, letting George Siegel's hustler thrive in Singapore's Changi camp by bartering anything, including disease-breeding rodents. Shot on a painstaking bamboo village built at California's Columbia Ranch, the film trucked in truckloads of tropical foliage and piped artificial monsoon rain to swamp every frame. Forbes kept extras on starvation rations to sell the gaunt look, while actors smeared glycerin under armpits for perpetual sweat sheen. James Fox's upright British officer offers moral counterweight, but Siegel's silk-smuggling charisma nearly seduces us into complicity. Budgeted at roughly $4 million, the picture recouped costs, yet stayed overshadowed by grander POW spectacles like The Great Escape. Today, critics hail its nuanced take on survival ethics, how war warps class and conscience long before bullets fly. Roger Corman once called it the nastiest, most honest Jawu 2 prison film nobody saw. The Night of the Generals, 1967. Picture a grisly murder mystery spliced into the nerve center of Nazi Europe. Major Grau, Omar Sharif, hunts a high-ranking sadist who butchers prostitutes across Warsaw, Paris, and ultimately the doomed July 20th conspirators. Peter O'Toole dons icy blue contact lenses to play General Tanz, exuding predatory stillness that chills more than any tank battalion. Producer Sam Spiegel poured $5.2 million into lavish locations, real occupation-era boulevards in Warsaw and Paris shut for night shoots, then hired cinematographer Henri Descailles to flood alleys with noir shadows that swallow Tanz's silhouette. Maurice Jarre's waltz theme pirouettes over the carnage, underlining war's dance macabre. Released into a market craving straight battle action, the film confounded ticket buyers, yet its influence creeps everywhere. Look closely, and you'll spot its DNA in C7, and even Inglourious Bastards. The devil, it seems, sometimes wears epaulets instead of horns. Fancy a whodunit where the entire continent is the crime scene? Start interrogating. Battle of Narva, 1969. When Yugoslavia sets out to top Hollywood, expect artillery. Veljko Bulajic marshaled 10,000 soldiers, 16 tons of TNT, and diplomatic sway to explode a real bridge across the Neretva River, twice because the first take looked too neat. The state-funded budget ballooned beyond $12 million, making it Europe's costliest film at the time. International stars Yul Brynner, Franco Nero, Orson Welles, and Silva Cosina juggled accents beneath fur-lined partisan gear, while Pablo Picasso, yes, the Picasso, painted the movie's poster after a single private screening. Battle scenes unfold like canvas come alive. Snow-dusted ridges roar with Katyusha rockets, horses plunge into ice floes, and villagers form bucket brigades against flamethrowers. The film nabbed an Oscar nomination for Best Foreign Language Film, yet found only art house playdates in the West, leaving its monumental scale largely unseen by mainstream viewers. Modern directors mining crowd war choreography think Jackson's Return of the King, still crib shots from Bulajic's wide-angle carnage. Time to cross that dynamited span and witness Balkan bravery writ colossal. Morituri, Unu Noa Shasicinch, spy thriller or existential chamber piece? Why not both? Bernhard Wicki's high seas nail-biter forces pacifist deserter Robert Crane onto a German blockade runner rigged with demolition charges, there to outwit steel-eyed Captain Yul Brynner. Brando leaned into accent uncertainty, claiming Crane's persona was itself camouflage. Brynner countered with chilling precision, allegedly refusing breaks so his gaze never softened. Conrad Hall's desaturated cinematography bathes iron corridors in sweat-slick horror, while Jerry Goldsmith's 12-tone score thrums like sonar in a nightmare. Production cost $6.3 million, and Fox executives prayed for an African Queen-style hit. Instead, Vietnam frustrations kept audiences away, sinking U.S. grosses to half the budget. Yet cinephiles adore its tension mathematics. Silent running nights where whispered footsteps echo louder than depth charges, and a moral finale questioning whether sabotage saves lives or merely shifts guilt. Hell is for Heroes, 1962. 1 year shy of our decade cutoff but spiritually pure 60s grit, Don Siegel's economical bunker drama follows a skeleton squad ordered to fake full company strength against entrenched Nazis. Steve McQueen channels restless menace, subtly racking his Thompson even when dry, foreshadowing his bullet aura. The shoestring budget forced Siegel to set the entire story on a single shell-cratered French road at night. Giant carbon arc lamps mimicked artillery flares, bathing mud in ghostly silver. Bob Newhart, newly famous for phone-riffed comedy, ad-libbed a surreal one-sided call to non-existent headquarters that Siegel kept, citing war's absurd theater. Although box office returns were modest, critics hailed its stripped realism, and later directors, from Oliver Stone to Catherine Bigelow, studied its economical tension. Watching McQueen crawl under barbed wire with cigarettes clenched between teeth reminds you that bravery is sometimes the absence of alternatives. Up for a low-budget masterclass in suspense? Dig in and hold that line. The Thin Red Line, 1964. Long before Terrence Malick's dreamy opus, Andrew Martin served James Jones's Guadalcanal carnage straight, hot, and under $1 million. Keir Dullea headlines as Private Doll, a survival-obsessed everyman whose moral compass spins under artillery shock. Martin shot in Spain's Sierra de Guadarrama, truckloads of palm fronds transforming arid slopes into Pacific jungle. Facing budget crunches, he choreographed assaults with handheld Aeroflex cameras, ducking real detonations to capture authentic soldier POV, techniques later lionized in Vietnam documentaries. Jack Warden's Captain Welsh provides bitter mentorship, his dialogue mined verbatim from Jones's novel after Martin fought studio execs for R-rated language. Critics dismissed it as another foxhole melodrama, yet vets praised its bleary pacing, hours of terror followed by minutes of soul-numbing inactivity. Malick's remake hogs modern spotlight, but this lean forebear crackles with raw immediacy and a final line that will haunt your post-screening silence. The Human Condition. 3. A Soldier's Prayer, 1961. Masaki Kobayashi's 9.5-hour magnum opus concludes with this wintry march of broken souls. Tatsuya Nakadai's pacifist Kaji, imprisoned by both Japanese militarism and Soviet capture, staggers through Manchurian blizzards, shepherding starving comrades while clinging to human decency as his last ration. Kobayashi filmed chronologically over 3 years, letting Nakadai grow out his beard and hollow his eyes for authenticity. Production employed 12,000 extras and entire Siberian-style villages built in Hokkaido. Temperatures plunged so low that camera oil froze, forcing technicians to warm lenses over charcoal braziers. Though Japanese rentals eventually recouped the trilogy's 538 million yen total cost, Western distributors balked at subtitles and runtime, relegating screenings to Film Society marathons. The reward for endurance? A searing indictment of imperial cruelty that wields the intimate power of Bergman while unfolding on David Lean scale. If you believe cinema should challenge as well as entertain, Kaji's Final Prayer may shake your worldview more fiercely than any artillery blast. Is Paris Burning? 1966. René Clément's mosaic of the 1944 liberation is less single narrative, more living fresco, 76 speaking roles, 30-odd locations, and a script punched up by both Gore Vidal and a young Francis Ford Coppola. With the Eiffel Tower awaiting demolition charges, we shadow resistance cells, Wehrmacht holdouts, and Allies racing toward the Seine. Clément convinced City Hall to shut Champs-Élysées night traffic, dressing Arc de Triomphe in swastikas so massive they required police cordons to calm outraged citizens. Maurice Jarre mixes church bells with snare drums for a score that rises like dawn over barricades, while Marcel Grignon's monochrome and color photography bathes every cafe window in reflective melancholy. The multinational cast, Belmondo sprinting across rooftops, Kirk Douglas commanding tanks, Simone Signoret forging papers, means every cut sparks fresh star wattage, but critics decried its docudrama sprawl, and box office glory mostly arrived overseas, tallying 37 million worldwide. 15 dust-covered reels, each brimming with battlefield grit, moral thunder, and cinematic bravado, now unearthed for your viewing crusade. Which title stormed your heart? Which forgotten hero deserves a comeback? Sound off in the comments, hammer subscribe, and ring that bell so you never miss another sortie with Movieverse. Share the video, recruit your movie platoon, and watch the algorithms surrender. More timeless treasures are marching your way, so keep the projectors rolling, the popcorn popping, and those spirits unbreakable. Dismissed.